Hey guys, it's Katie Taylor, and today's video I am sharing two totally different layouts using One Sketch as part of the Creative Design Team monthly collab, One Sketch, Two Ways. I have pulled out a couple of things to complete this layout. Now remember, it is One Sketch, Two Ways. So I am looking at our 8.5 by 11 sketchbook, and I'm really drawn to this sketch for a couple of reasons. I currently have the NSM special on my desk. So we've got slimline cards, standard size cards, 4 kits, but I'm only going to be using 2 of the stamp sets, and then we have stencils. And since I already have that on my desk, a lot of times I like to just use what's here. And so this has circles, it has florals, everything like that. And I got a lot of questions from my customers about how can I use this on a layout? How can these cards translate to a layout? So I'm going to double dip and show you One Sketch, Two Ways. And I'm also going to show you about that National Stamping Month promotion on layouts. And then I've already showed you this. I've also pulled out a piece of our Journey glitter paper. And then I've pulled out a piece of our Mix-In collection. So this is just our black and white. I'm really liking this pattern, but I may go with the stripes. I don't know. We'll see how that looks against those stencils. And then I am scrapbooking a lunch or a brunch that I had with my very own friend and CDT member, Andrea. We went to New York wedding dress shopping for our oldest son and his fiance. And she was so kind to meet me, her and her daughter, Katie, were so kind to meet me in the city. And so we had brunch and we just sat there for a couple of hours and just chopped it up. So why or how can you scrapbook Andrea without throwing in glitter paper and some florals? So we're going to do that, and then you have got to hang on for that second sketch, this second layout, because I'm going to do something totally different than the floral pieces that you see here. So let me clear my desk, grab some other things, and then we can get started. Like I mentioned, I am going to be using the diagonal stripe stencils from the National Stamping Month special. So I've pulled those out, and then my bases are actually, I'm going to use the light side of Mink. It's just going to add a creaminess to the base page instead of just stark white. And so I'm also going to stencil on light Mink as well. So I have 2 3 by 12 pieces of cardstock. So I want to tape my cardstock to my stencil. And then it's just going to secure it a little bit. And then once we get started, I'm also going to actually use my magnets as well. Just kind of making sure that this is straight. And I purposely used a piece of cardstock that was smaller than my stencil so I could get this done. So we've got that. And then let me tape this down right here. And then I'm going to bring in, my magnets are pretty strong. I'm going to bring in a magnet right there and just a magnet right here for right now. So these are the single stripes, and I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use Glacier. Also going to use one of my wider brushes because these stripes are so big. The Close to My Heart blending brushes are really nice size, but I just don't have any extra at this moment. So this one was already in the blue family, and it'll make for easy work since it's so large. And one thing about stenciling and ink is you can go as heavy-handed or as light-handed as you want to get the shade or the hue of the color that you're using. So you can see I'm kind of coming to the end over here, and so I want to not go all the way to the end to create a harsh line, and I want to move the stencil down. So what we're going to do is we're just going to overlap. Let's overlap this one. So we're going to overlap that one and then just continue on with the stenciling. And that way you can never tell that this stencil was meant for a slimline card. You can do the same with our card bases or our stencils for our A2 size cards. Okay, so while I'll have Glacier out, I'm going to go ahead and do the same to that second piece of cardstock, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how we're going to add the other stripes. So we are finished with the Glacier, and the next one is going to be Journey. Actually, let me leave that attached to that one. So now we're going to pull out these skinny strips, and we are going to, there are several ways you can do this. You could line them up like that. I am going to overlap them slightly and then just start inking up that Journey. So I chose these colors because of what Andrea and I are wearing. I don't always go exactly what the photos are. A lot of times I like the photos to actually be a color in themselves. But in this instance, I went ahead and used the colors. You'll be able to see the part of this Journey that overlaps the Glacier. It's just going to create a fun little stripe. And then you want to be careful touching the stencil and then touching your project after you're done, because this ink just sits on top of that stencil, and so it's easily transferred to your hands and then transferred to your project. So now it is time to clean up. That glass board makes it really easy just to clean the stencils as well as my work surface. And then I have flipped that stencil over, and now I am applying mulberry ink. Again, the mulberry comes into play with the color of my dress. So I am just moving this stencil down, lining up some already stenciled parts, making sure that it's taped to my mat, as well as using those magnets, and then brushing on some more of that ink. And then when I come to a part that needs to be elongated, I make sure that I don't go all the way to the edge. And I just love that these stencils allow you to make all sorts of patterns. In fact, I will have a post up this week on these stencils, so make sure you're following me over on Instagram to see all of those variations of this diagonal stripe. So now it is time to assemble my layout. Now for ease, I am attaching my base to my Versamat and then just kind of eyeballing things, trying to figure out where I'm going to put this Journey shimmer trim. I did decide to use the shimmer trim instead of cutting a piece of glitter paper because only a little bit is going to show. So I'm going to line that shimmer trim up at the 4-inch mark, and by using either the Versamat or my glass board, it's really easy to go from edge to edge and get that done. And then I am going to just stack on that black piece of pattern paper from the mix-in, and then I'm going to come back in with another piece of that Journey shimmer trim, just lining that up from edge to edge and trimming it off as I go. Now it is time to adhere that diagonal stenciled piece along the bottom, and then just remove some of that adhesive off my Versamat and my base page with my rub and remove eraser. I'm going to be attaching the photos for this left layout using 3D foam tape, and then I'm going to pull out the shapes, the circles that I'm going to use, as well as my title. For my title, I did decide to go with our brand new titles. We have acrylic titles, and then we have this black chipboard or paperboard, as well as some wood grain. And you'll see me use the wood grain on my second layout that I still have yet to share with you. Now I am also putting out happy, but I end up changing that in the end. I am going to use a couple of the stamp sets or the stamp images from the You Go Girl stamp set, again, part of the National Stamping Month. I'm inking 2 of those sentiments up with the Journey ink, and then I will add some black ink around those just to let them pop. And then on my circles, instead of just having a plain white landing piece for the florals that I'm going to be using, I'm pulling out our new Design Elements stamp set. I've already used used this multiple times. And this is the Crackle one, and I'm inking that up in Mulberry ink. It's going to be just something really subtle behind the little embellishments that I add. I'm going to go ahead and attach the other E and the other M using liquid adhesive. I waited on that so they would overlap that one circle. I am going to pull out the floral stamp set, and I've already stamped up a whole bunch of the floral pieces, and I am going to color some of those with my homemade Mulberry alcohol marker. If you are a part of the CDT membership, you got a class on making those. And then speaking of CDT, we have opened up our 31 days of Christmas cards. Right now you can join with the early bird pricing. You'll see that code on that image, as well as I will leave it down in the links below. You'll find over 100 cards over a 31-day period in October, and we would love to have you. So I'm going to just finish up coloring some of these images and then add a different coloring method by using my Glacier ink pad, turned it over onto my glass board, and now I have a clear shimmer brush, and I'm just adding some of that Glacier ink to these floral images from Sending You a Hug. And that'll just kind of match again some of that diagonal ink down at the bottom stencil, and then just be something a little bit more subtle than a marker would be. Now, one of my photos does have my eggs, which are bright yellow almost. So I did decide to color some of the floral images using our Tri-Blend markers. So if you're counting, that's actually 3 different types of coloring, I believe, on this layout, which I love to do. Now here's a look at that right layout. I've done most of it off camera, but I am going to kind of finish off this little grouping at the top right once I get this picture of my food adhered down. Again, I'm using those floral pieces that I colored. Most of the foliage and the small flowers will be adhered directly to my layout using the liquid adhesive. And then I am going to add 3D foam tape on this flower, as well as 3D foam tape on the back of this sentiment. Now, the sentiments that I chose for this layout explain or describe Andrea to a T. She was so sweet to come back into the city. She had already come the day before because our good friend Julie, a part of our CDT group, she had also been visiting New York. So Andrea came on Thursday for Julie, Saturday for me, and then she came back again on Monday, I believe, to see a concert with her girls. But anyways, it was just so sweet of her to do that. So I'm also using some of the sentiments stamped down in the bottom right from that floral NSM set as well. And I'm going to add 3D foam tape to this little bitty yellow flower. Again, that yellow flower is just to bring some of that yellow from my food photo down and around both of these layouts. I did decide to add some more sparkle. You do have that shimmer trim in the Journey, and then it just needed to be offset just a little bit. So I'm using the Journey glitter gems just to kind of add some sparkle around my little clusters. So that is pretty much it on this layout. I do decide that the edges need a little bit of something. So I've taken one of my black journaling pens and I am just doodling around the edge. And it's not really a doodle. It's just as straight a line as I can get it on 2 of the sides. So for the second way to use a sketch, I have just this copy and you have just the sketches. I don't have the dimensions. I am going to cut this in half, and you can see that I've trimmed everything away from these sketches. And this is going to help me a little bit. So this is just going to be a quick tutorial. This is going to be more like just showing you, since I'm doing a whole nother layout, just showing you how I view these sketches, and then I'm going to show you the finished product. So you can see here, this is what the original sketch was. This is what my layout 1 was. But by cutting them apart, now I can manipulate them. I can say, okay, what if I made these sidebars? What if I made them meet in the middle? And what if I made them up at the top? And that way you can look at sketches, you can rotate them, you can do cards like the other girls have shown you. There are just endless possibilities for sketches, and that's why I think we all love sketches. So let me show you what I decided to do with them. I am pulling out my Versamat again and attaching a white sheet of cardstock, and then I'm using the edge to line up a 7 by 10 piece of pattern paper, and then you'll see that sidebar over on the left, and then I'm just kind of roughing up those torn edges with my finger just to add some dimension. Now there will be 2 4x6 photos in the middle of the page, and then here is where the twist comes in. Instead of using circles or floral pieces, I'm actually using additional photos, and you can see those already kind of drafted right there. I am going to add again some of that design element stamped image behind those pieces. Now this is inked up in toffee, and this is almost like maybe a sand. We used to have a stamp set back when they were wood mounted called Speckle, and that's kind of what this reminds me of, but it's just a grounding piece for these photos. And again, because of that sketch and those floral pieces and those circles, it gave me the idea to actually use photos instead. Here is a look at my title. Again, similar to that black title on that other page, this is our wood grain. And then I'm going to add to that title with a alphabet stamp set. This is the Havana, and I'm stamping the at the top and then tacos on the bottom. And then I'm just going to add some of the stickers and then the embellishment pieces to Cape Cod, as well as some of those acrylic little hearts here and there. Now, for the most part, that is the sketch. Again, I showed you where you could rotate it. Again, here are some of the little bitty design elements, and then of course those photos instead of the floral pieces and the circles. And so just look at your sketches. We have several sketchbooks that you could purchase. I'll leave links down below. And then it just kind of gives you that jumping off point. I've brought back in that first layout just to kind of go over the sketch and remind you of some of those design elements. So we have the 3 circles that create that visual triangle, and they are anchors to those floral pieces, and they span both of the layouts. And then I'll add my journaling down at the bottom right of this layout. Again, this was pretty much in line with the sketch, other than making it a 12 by 12. And then here is that twist. So that second way to use that sketch. Don't forget that 31 Days of Christmas Cards is open for the early bird pricing right now. So you will save $5 by registering through September 20th, and then that price goes up to $39.95. I'll leave links down below to all the products that I used, as well as our sketchbooks and our website, so you can register for the 31 Days of Christmas Cards. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching. Click on that CDT playlist to see all the other videos that we have for 2023, as well as this month's collab. And then, as always, if you want to subscribe, sign up for notifications, and then share with your friends, like, and leave a comment. Thanks, and you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend.